Education is in danger of becoming an inherited right. The greatest predictor of a child's likelihood of graduating college lies in the answer to the question, did his parents graduate high school, or did her parents graduate high school? The Office of Education and Child Development found that the odds that a young person in the U.S. will be in higher education if his or her parents do not have an upper secondary education are just 29%. That's not the land of opportunity, that's a land of economic aristocracy, and it's fundamentally un-American. We have to fund programs like Kentucky's Keys money or restore the Powerball promise so that our students have access to scholarship money so that they can attend higher education, because it is a right.
Ms. Yancey, what's your stance?
I believe that education is right because everyone deserves an education and everyone should be able to get one. And that is why we do have cheaper public universities. However, it is also a privilege because not everyone should be able to get a doctorate degree. And by having everyone being able to get degrees, it leads to a more competitive job market, and many people graduating with degrees are qualified for higher paying jobs that they are unable to get because there are so many people graduating degrees. I think we need to focus on other educational options such as vocational schools and community colleges, and not just on public funded universities.
Ms. Yancey, what strengths would you specifically bring to the 6th District?
To the 6th District, I will bring strengths of keeping our community safe, as well as promoting fiscal responsibility and keeping and protecting your constitutional rights. I will do this by focusing on job reform and keeping our small businesses and Kentuckians flourishing and continuing to grow. I want to be able to cut back on taxes for small businesses because so many Kentuckians rely on these jobs. I also want to help continue to bring large corporations to Kentucky that allow more Kentuckians to have jobs, such as Toyota. I think that Kentucky will continue to be able to grow and flourish, and that the people in Kentucky are very strong and capable of being able to grow through the support of the government and by themselves.
Ms. Maples?
The greatest strength I bring to Kentucky's 6th District is my familiarity. The people I went to serve were my neighbors. They were the people I went to church with. They are my teachers. And I am from the 6th District, and I understand what we need, and also the fact that we don't need to be saved. There is that idea that because we are from Appalachia, or we have the term Eastern Kentucky in our name, that we're somehow disadvantaged. But I understand that we can come together as a community in times of crisis. But I also understand what we need from the government, and that's what I'll bring to Washington if I'm elected. And that's our greatest strength. The 6th District is not only my support, but they're also my source for my platforms. It was their concerns that helped me create the need for drug courts and drug rehabilitation programs, to help me know that we need support for small businesses, but we also need to invite new industry into Kentucky. They also told me the problems with our education system. I didn't look at just big Washington elites or statistics or studies from people in Washington. I talked to the teachers and the students who would be directly involved, and that knowledge is my greatest strength.
This economy will be destroyed. Ms. Maples, do you believe acts created to make coal less attractive are hurting both our district and our nation's economy or not?
I do believe that the regulations are crippling the coal industry. But I also know that the coal industry is crippling itself because we are not holding our corporations accountable. We're severely limiting ourselves as a district and thinking that's the only source of our jobs. We have to know that we are worth so much more than that. And the reason that these places are closing down and we're losing jobs is because the greedy corporations are seeing them as less profitable. So the restrictions are in part responsible, but also the industry itself. So we have to look elsewhere to create more jobs, and my plan will do just that, by legalizing industrial hemp. We are the perfect area to grow the product, and we don't have to worry about government regulations like those crippling the coal industry.
Ms. Yancey, your response?
The coal industry is not only a source of countless jobs for Americans, but it also provides nearly 40% of electricity for all of America, as well as 90% for Kentucky. Many people from Kentucky's 6th District have jobs that are related to the coal industry, and many of the regulations put on it are crippling it and making it harder for for people to not only have their jobs, but it's going to change the way we receive our energy in the future. And it's going to be detrimental to Kentucky's economy. I think the regulations are hurting the miners themselves, as well as their families and the future generations of families of people who are from a family of mining.
Ms. Yancey, how will you increase economic opportunity for Kentuckians and reduce income and wealthy inequality?
For income, I think we need to focus on getting rid of income tax for those living in poverty, making $50,000 or less of a family of 4 or more. I also think that to increase Kentucky's economy, we can continue to bring corporations such as Toyota's Georgetown plant to our district. Our district has so many opportunities for job growth and to increase our economy, such as our bourbon industry and horse racing, as well as tobacco. The people in Kentucky rely on these industries, and by promoting them and helping them continue to grow, and tourism will help continue to increase Kentuckians' ability to make a higher wage and earn more money, as well as help Kentucky to continue to grow on not only a national level, but a global level.
Ms. Maples, your rebuttal.
Yes. To reduce wealth and income inequality, we have to start with education. We have to give our citizens opportunities outside of just production jobs. So it has to start with technical colleges and community colleges and allowing them to find funds to pursue those types of education. We have to give our citizens more options so that they can stop relying on social programs like welfare. If we start with education, then they're more likely to be able to keep up with the technological advances that are keeping us from attaining those higher paying jobs. My plan will do just that. By restoring the Powerball promise so that more students can receive a higher education, and that doesn't just mean going to college, but attending those technical schools, it'll open up a door to so many more opportunities so that we can make more money and we don't have to rely on the government solely.
Ms. Coleman, what would you do to support greater racial justice and address racial inequality?
To do so, I think we have to decide first as a country this. We so often hear that we are the great melting pot, that we bring together so many cultures in one, and that's what makes us great. But we should start considering whether we're this melting pot or actually a bowl of peas and carrots. And I know that this is a really elementary example, but consider this. When we're that bowl of peas and carrots, we're able to maintain our cultures that make us so different and unique, and we all contribute something great to this country. So once we start having that conversation about, are we sacrificing who we are as different cultures and heritage for the sake of nationalism, or should our nationalism be defined by our diversity? Then we can start to address racial inequality. And I think that we are that bowl of peas and carrots. We all contribute something great, and when we start understanding our differences, we'll start to get along a lot better.
Ms. Maples, what policies will you put in place?
To reduce racial inequality?
Yes.
I think it has to go back to the question of police. So Ms. Yancey was right. I also support police body cams. I think that the greatest source of our disagreement right now is the treatment of police officers, as well as the way police officers are treating our minorities. So a specific plan would be that I would require police officers to wear body cameras so that they are held more accountable. But also, I want to install programs within our schools so that children begin at an early age to start respecting police officers and know the role that they have in our communities, and that they do so much more than write speeding tickets, or so much more than the awful videos we see on the news every night. They're actually our allies and our heroes, and when we start doing those specific things, we can start to address racial inequality.
Ms. Yancey, what is your response to this, and what policies will you put in place?
I think racial inequality is an issue in America, and it needs to be addressed. We need to accept that prejudice does still exist, and that people will always have views that are negative towards different races. But instead of focusing on that, we need to promote love and peace in our country and promote that we are all equal. We are all American citizens, and we all have the same rights. And in terms of police officers, as I had said and Ms. Maples brought up, I do believe that we need to have body cameras for police officers. We need to promote that they are the people most of the time. Although some do make mistakes, the majority of the time, many police officers' only intention is to protect the American citizens. And we need to realize this, and we need to respect our police officers as well as respect all citizens.
Ms. Yancey, what do you take as Congresswoman to ensure access to affordable health care for Kentuckians, specifically veterans?
Many veterans in Kentucky do not have access to health care. There are thousands of veterans that live in our district that are being limited by the Veterans Affairs, Department of Veterans Affairs, and their access for veterans to be able to get the quality health care they need for not just their physical health, but their mental health. We also need to improve our health care system because Obamacare has been a failure, and it's going to continue to lead to increasing rates. And the next year it's going to rise 25%. And it's not a plan that has benefited most of Kentuckians. It has hurt many Kentuckians.
Ms. Maples, your rebuttal.
The best plan for improving our healthcare system is to strike a balance between those federally insured programs that President Obama created, as well as private company insurance. Now, I will promise to vote in favor of increased funding for our Veterans Affairs hospitals. I hear time and time again that our veterans are not even just being denied health care, but they're being put almost on a waiting list. And that's unacceptable. They've served our country, and now it's time for us to serve them. So by increasing funding for our Veterans Affairs hospitals, they'll have greater access to health care, and their needs will be taken care of. But we also have to give insurance companies regulations so that they can stop taking advantage of us. We have to hold them accountable. By striking that balance, by providing them regulations, as well as allowing citizens to choose what insurance plan is best for them, whether it's federal or private, we can strike that balance and we can reform healthcare in a way that doesn't strip all the progress President Obama made through the Affordable Care Act, but also restore those rates that Ms. Yancey mentioned that were increased.
Some politicians believe helping undocumented immigrants become documented is beneficial because they can help fund Social Security, while others believe undocumented immigrants must go through the proper procedures to become Americans. Ms. Maples, what's your stance on this?
America is a country of immigrants, and I believe we have to keep our doors open for this. And the best way that we can do this is by giving them a path to citizenship, so making those undocumented workers documented. And we talked about Social Security earlier, and I'm still committed to ensuring that Social Security is intact for those when you retire. And by allowing these undocumented immigrants to become documented, like you said, they will fund Social Security by paying into the system as well, and they'll also be given the opportunity to a path to citizenship. And I think that strikes the best balance.
Ms. Yancey, your response on this?
I do not support illegal immigration. However, I do fully support legal immigration, and I think we need to make our policies for legal immigration easier so that way more people can enter our country legally without compared to illegally, where we do not know if they have the intent to commit a crime or not. As of 2013, there was more than 11 million undocumented immigrants living and working in the United States, taking away jobs from American citizens. In terms of Social Security, legal immigrants should be paying into it and should have full access to it. The illegal immigrants should not. Reform the process for it to make it easier for them to not only apply, but to be accepted and given visas or work permits or permits to study here in the United States. And after people have received these permits, it should become easier for them to then become fully legal citizens. I also do think that we need to increase our borders to make it to where the only option for people who want to enter our country is to enter it legally.
Ms. Maples, do you have a response to this?
Certainly. So I agree. We have to have some formalized process to making these undocumented workers documented. We already have a visa system in place, however, it's much too complicated. I think we have to keep our doors open because our ancestors came that same way. So by allowing them easier access to these visa programs and allowing them to apply for jobs, although they are undocumented, but giving them the tools they need to become documented, that's the best way we can protect Social Security, which was the issue we were talking about, as well as giving them a path to citizenship.
And how?
think we do need to increase funding for defense spending because our foreign policy is a big issue, and we are known for having one of the strongest militaries in the world, and we should continue to have one of the strongest. We need to make sure that our country is protected, whether it's from the inside or outside. And by increasing military spending while taking away from programs like I mentioned earlier, such as the yoga classes where money is being wasted, we will be able to continue to grow and have a flourishing military.
Ms. Maples, what is your stance on this?
I don't think we need to increase defense funding, but instead maintain what we already have. We already spend more than half of our budget on defense, and we fail to recognize that we have allies who can support us in our efforts. We have to utilize our allies because the military-industrial complex has a chokehold in our country. They monopolize a lot of the things that we as citizens should not find acceptable. And by maintaining our budget as is, we still protect programs like education, like environmental policies. So we can still protect ourselves by utilizing our allies without having to pay for it, or without having taxpayers have to fund it entirely.
Now to our final question. Ms. Maples, how will you work together with President-elect Trump to help Kentucky's 6th District?
So as I've said before, compromise isn't a dirty word to me. I hate the idea that because we're on opposite sides of the aisle, we can't work together. I am proud to say that I'm willing to work with our leaders across the aisle, including President-elect Donald Trump, to create policies that benefit the entire country and Kentucky's 6th District. I work for you, and I don't have a hidden agenda. So I don't have an ulterior motive, and I promise to work with President-elect Donald Trump if he has policies that will greatly benefit this country and our district.
Ms. Yancey, how will you work with President-elect Trump?
The people of Kentucky have spoken, and they agree with many of Donald Trump's policy, and that is why they have voted for him. And so I will work with him on creating policy that will be effective for all of Kentuckians, especially those here in the 6th District. However, I will not compromise any values or beliefs of members of the 6th District to pass policy that he once enacted.
Unfortunately, our time is up. That concludes our 6th District Congressional debate. Thank you for listening, and remember to vote on December 2nd.